Hello, welcome back to the Jackwood Football Podcast. I'm joined with the brilliant, the exceptional. Let's find some more superlatives. Let's try and make him really smile. We're joined by Tom for another reflecting on November this time. Tom, how you doing, mate?
I've never been referred to as brilliant and exceptional in quite close proximity. I'm delighted with that, mate. Thank you for the fabulous intro. It's always lovely to be on this series. I'm glad so many people enjoy it as much as we do putting it together. And full disclosure, this is going to be one of the most relaxed we've been on this.
Yeah.
So bring it on.
Yeah, so relaxed, mate. And we could pretend it's intentional. We could pretend that we're planning on making this so relaxed, but we could also be truthful and just say that these have always been quite relaxed. This one, well, I'm not gonna. We could go in with an open mind and sort of see how see how it goes. I'm sure it will provide great conversation. At the point of the reflections, we look back on this time November. I know we're in the 4th of December, but the games went right up until the end of November. So we've waited and we've now prepared loosely to talk about it. So that's what we're going to do. Let's begin with Pompey. We start with Pompey. We start with Oxford United, the two football clubs that we support. We always focus on them. We say every time we won't go heavy on them too much because we look at the broader League One outfit. But Pompey, it's been a interesting month. We've been very, very positive about them over the course of the season so far. I've started reading your notes, Tom. Portsmouth this month, not as plain sailing, but still pretty good. You're top of the table. It can't be all doom and gloom.
No, it's not all doom and gloom. It's probably the weakest month we've had so far this season. 3 league games, win, draw, and a loss. Monkey off the back in terms of that unbeaten record. And on the whole, I've still been really pleased. And I know it spills into December slightly. And we've spoken about how the games are straight into it in terms of December. And we're coming straight off the back of them in terms of November. The 2 games this week, I think we've seen arguably the best from Pompey this season on those 2 away trips. 5 goals scored, 0 conceded. Sadie, Paddy, Alex Robertson, all starting to hit new levels in my book. And we knew they were good anyway. We knew they were talented players, but it just taking it up a notch in terms of the output, especially in the absence of Colby Bishop towards the tail end of this week, I've been mightily impressed by. On Alex Robertson specifically, I was thinking about it earlier on today, and it will probably make up part of my prep for the Bolton video upcoming on Full No Run Over It, and we'll probably say this at some point, and I'm sure it will be on the lips of most Pompey fans talking about it, but Alex Robertson is probably in the company of 3 or 4 names that I've seen in my lifetime playing for Pompey in terms of the talent, the tenacity, the technical ability. I'd probably go Lasana Diarra, Jed Wallace, Robert Prozinecki and Paul Merson. I genuinely think he's in that kind of conversation. The most astonishing part, Wardy, is he's a couple of months older than me. And I don't know how much older that makes him. Are you younger than me or are you older than me?
I'm June 2004. So you're older, I think.
Yeah, I'm quite significantly older. That's quite scary, actually. Yes.
Sorry, mate. You asked the question. I answered it. I made you feel
I
bad
say
your own question,
significantly. It's less than a year, isn't it? So
it's
too
not
bad.
bad. It's not bad.
But he's slightly older than both of us, which is quite scary. I'm over the moon for Paddy. I think it's one of the single best performances I've seen from a Pompey player in a Pompey shirt this calendar year. And you don't say that lightly, but I think it is. 5 goals, 2 assists in 16 appearances, 12 of those have starts. I'm made up for him. John Messino's proud of his... Try that again. John Messino's proud of his players. I'm very proud of him and his players too. It's been another good month, tainted by that 4-0, which I'm sure you want to speak about at length because you always do. But we take those. We take the. I wouldn't call it a humbling, although it was quite a sobering night. It's luckily it was out of character. We spoke about the response, didn't we? We said we've been saying all along. We've been saying it on this series. We've been saying it on my channel. We've been saying it on your reflections every week. How do this Pompey group respond to the first defeat? And to go and then score 5 goals away from home across 2 games and not concede any, that response was pretty good.
Yeah, and I think I won't speak about it at length because I don't need to. I think if you'd have lost that game and then had 2 tricky away results and you look at the table very, very differently, you would do. And the results and general perception around the football club would be very, very different to what it is now. The perception at the moment is you've bounced back and you've shown a mentality to bounce back at the first opportunity. And we haven't seen this Pompey side, and this Pompey side haven't needed to respond in that way before. You just come off the back of a 27-game unbeaten run. You didn't need to respond. You've had some difficult draws in there. Remember, Stevenage was quite difficult for you boys to take. And Cheltenham at home, how you drew that game and didn't win it, we'll never know. But that's not a proper response. There wasn't a proper response that was needed. You didn't lose that game, and 4-0 is it had 0-4 written all over it, as you put. But at the end of the day, you've responded fantastically well against two very, very difficult oppositions. And you might look at the league table and go, well, I don't quite see that. But Burton away and Northampton away, if you know League One, they're not nice. And Burton, especially on a Tuesday night, is not pretty whatsoever. And you came through those games very, very comfortably, I'd say, in some of those games. And I'd say both of them, really. You didn't need to get out of second gear. And that just shows this sort of Pompey team is full of mentality, full of togetherness and belief, and you can really overcome obstacles that come your way, no matter what you've dealt with in the previous game. And a 4-0 is a pretty humbling one. I would say it's quite humbling because of the fact it's quite a few goals, and in the second half you just weren't good enough. But you've come out of that fantastically well. And you look at the league table, you're still in a very, very positive position. A big month coming up. We'll talk about that later. Moving to Oxford, we're now in third place. Last time, I believe we were in second, but we also had Liam Manning in charge. So, a lot can change in a month.
Yeah.
Wow. It's crazy. And that's the beauty of these reflections. We joke at the start about how these are super relaxed and how we can chat about anything and the running order goes out the window quite often. But ultimately, you can't plan for this. People will say, how early do you plan for it? You can't really, because no one would have said that Liam Manning wouldn't be an Oxford United manager a month ago. We wouldn't be speaking about Des Buckingham guiding this Oxford team into a position where
he'd still be in Mumbai, mate.
He'd still be in Mumbai, be tanning himself up in India this time last month. And he's now in a freezing cold England in Oxford on the 4th of December. I mean, the poor bloke, he might have been living the dream in terms of the job he's got, and I'm sure it means so much to him. And we'll go into a bit of detail on that. It's a fantastic opportunity for him. But ultimately, it's a bit different to Mumbai, isn't it? Temperature-wise,
happy Christmas,
absolutely freezing. Happy Christmas. Yeah, not quite the warm Christmas he's been used to in previous years, but a traditional English one that, of course, he was used to when he was at Oxford for a long period of time before. He's been at Oxford before. He was, I think, 10 years, a decade of coaching under Chris Wilder and other managers, and he's worked his way now to a position where he's one of the most highly rated young coaches in England. I can say that comfortably. He's come through the City Group. He's very, very exciting. He's had a very, very difficult start to his tenure at Oxford, but it's a fantastic moment for him, fantastic moment for his family. He's been speaking about the fact his first home game, Bolton, on Tuesday, he jokingly said half of those stands were pretty filled with his own family. It was that much of an occasion. And that's lovely, isn't it? I think sometimes we can get overly involved in the football and what it means to win games and be at the top of the table and be focusing on promotion, all that sort of thing. But ultimately, we've got a guy in charge right now who is an Oxford United supporter. And first and foremost, he's making his family proud and the people that built him up to be a coach in the first place just as proud as well. And that was all at Oxford, 10 years ago, where the football club was in a very, very different place. Talking about his footballing start to the season, as they start to the season, we're 19 games in, but it is his start to the season as Oxford head coach. He's had Cheltenham away. I was there. It was difficult. It was tough. And when you go 1-0 down, Cheltenham away is a very, very difficult place to go. We lose that game 2-0, fair and square. We deserve to lose that game. Bolton was not a nice game to go to when you're looking for a reaction after a result like that, especially when Ruben got himself sent off and Greg Lee returns from Jamaican duty injured. He's going to be out for the majority of December, along with many others, as we'll come on to in just a moment. But he's also then had the FA Cup. We beat Grimsby comfortably. We've got Forest Green in the Tin Pot Trophy tomorrow. And then we've got Peterborough away.
You going to that one?
Funnily enough, Tom, I'm definitely not going to that one.
Surprise, surprise.
I tell you what, though, it's a busy month at Oxford duty for me. And I'll be going to Reading, which I'm really excited for. And that's the next stage for Des. It's the first league when he's looking for that. He's got Pompey away first. And that's going to be very, very difficult. He hasn't had a nice set of fixtures to go to. Let's be fair with that.
First?
Not Pompey away, Peterborough away first.
Away first.
Wrong P. Greg Lee, Carl Edwards, Marcus Brown, Sam Long, all injured. A lot of that will be injuries across December. It looks like Carl Edwards and Marcus Brown are going to be out until the new year. Sam Long, a couple of weeks away. Greg Lee, a couple of weeks away. It's difficult for Des. And like you said, the fixtures haven't been very nice. It is a game changer. Yeah, Greg Lee's been extraordinary. Carl Edwards has always been extremely lively. Marcus Brown, we've had for a little while. He's such a talent, but he really does struggle with injuries. And Sam Long is sort of a fantastic professional at the back there. And we're speaking about Greg Lee and Sam Long, who probably are Des's first choice right back and definitely first choice left back. And Carl Edwards started the game against Bolton. So it clearly is highly rated by Des Buckingham. And to have him out until December, it's going to be a massive blow. But yeah, it's going to be difficult for him. But we've got somebody in charge that desperately more than anybody wants to start winning games of football. And we're still third in the league. It's sort of, I'm trying to move away from the negative spin. We're third in the league. We've dealt with a massive setback with our manager leaving us. We've still got a lot of things to be excited about. And it's going to hopefully be a really positive festive period. We'll be able to go into detail on that in our next reflection, probably in the new year, which is scary. The next reflection could be.
Wow, is this the last one of 2023?
It looks that way. I don't think we're going to squeeze it
Crikey.
in at the end of December because that
No,
comes
'cause
thick and fast.
Yeah, we're playing on we're playing on the 29th, I think. I don't know if you're playing on the same day. I think
We
you
probably would
are.
be. And if not, that does tend to be quite a busy period
And
anyway.
that's a Friday night as well. So then it would be, yeah, no, definitely is.
I mean, even if we did record this in December, it definitely won't be out until the new year,
No.
but it most likely will be recorded in 2024, which is a very scary thing to say. But yeah, I think with Pompey and Oxford as well, to sort of summarise those two football clubs, it's been not similar, but we've had our ups and downs, both of us this month. And I think, to be fair, going into this month, it's been not plain sailing, but it's been fairly comfortable. I mean, first and second for a large part of the season so far. We've been tested this month, but to come out third and top of the league, I'd say we've come through that fairly well. And we've got a new manager, so we had to deal with that one too. Moving on then to who's impressed us, Tom. We'll start with you. We like focusing on the positive first. Unfortunately, there is a segment in a minute where we look at the sides that have underwhelmed us. But ultimately, we start with the positives. There are a couple of sides that have looked very good in the month of November. Tom, where do you want to start?
I'm going to take two of them on, and then there's one at the bottom of my little bit that you might have seen there that's destined and reserved for Mr. Ward. So I'll leave that one to you. We have been somewhat critical of Derby. We knew the quality of some of these players. We were bystanders and many other League One fans. Jake and Ben were the same, where we were all looking at Derby's window over the summer and thinking, crikey, they're assembling quite some squad. We knew the quality that these players had, and we can now see it starting to shine through. I think clinical Tyrese John-Jules, I think he is the different dimension that they've needed in terms of the strength and the pace up top. Magic from Kane Wilson, the dilemma of Forner or Smith, and then the solidity. That's been one of those days where I can't get my words out. Solidity of Cashin and Nelson, ending them up in the top six with a game in hand on the teams above them, and then 4 straight wins to complement that as well. It's looking a lot more like the Derby County that we expected from this season. 12 goals across 4 games in November for Peterborough, including a 5-0 thumping of their neighbours, are the next team I wanted to talk about in terms of a fantastic month. 4 points off the top 2. They've only lost a single league game since we beat them on the 3rd of September at Fratton Park, which is quite some run in a league like League One. Oxford, Barnsley, Derby, all to come in the next 4 weeks for them. So looking forward to see how they get on between now and the 1st of January. A lot of football for them to play. A lot of top teams in that mix as well for them in terms of their fixture run. So it'll be interesting to see. And we have another shout. Potentially Wardy, Peterborough and Derby you maybe expect to be in the conversation for teams that we've been impressed with. Perhaps, or perhaps we should be expecting this team to be in there given the last couple of months that they've had.
Yeah, we spoke on the phone earlier. At what point is it rude to say that Stevenage are and shouldn't be in the conversation? We were sort of saying, are they a surprise package this month? That is a segment. Are they? He's laughing again. I think we're going to do. How many months are we going to have to do this? I think we did all of the months last year. I'm going to accept there's going to be a laugh.
Are they a surprise package this month?
They could be, and I think it's rude to call them a surprise. If anything is a surprise package and should be rude, it shouldn't be Stevenage sort of associated with that. It shouldn't be, because they're a football club right now that are on fire. And Steve Evans is getting these boys playing football, not to the most attractive, but we knew that. It's all about making sure you find a way to win, being extremely difficult to beat. And by the way, they can be a very good side on the eye. They can do that. They've got many different aspects of their game. But ultimately, we know Steve Evans, and first and foremost, it comes about being defensively solid, being difficult to break down, playing in that low block, and being slightly more direct. You can still score fantastic goals, and you can still be extremely exciting on the eye while doing that. Not all the time, but we shouldn't just look at it on a negative spin, footballing and playing wise. The system and the philosophy might not be one of the most attractive. It might not be an Oxford, Bolton, or a Portsmouth, but they're in 4th. They're just behind that bunch, and you've got to give so many plaudits the way that Stevenage have done exceptionally well. And we spoke about it in pre-season. We said, and you kept saying, and you banged the drum about Stevenage and their recruitment. They had a fantastic window, and teams have had good windows. Burton had a good window. It hasn't quite worked out at Burton. Again, it looked like it was going to, and now they're sort of falling off slightly again. teams had very, very good transfer windows. We actually said, I believe at the time, teams are surprising us more than ever about how well they've recruited. And Stevenage were in that category, and we didn't quite know how it was going to sort of go. It's difficult to see how teams can gel and mold, but ultimately they've integrated fantastically well, and they're in fourth after playing 20 games. They're slightly games wise, they have played slightly more than Oxford, two more than Oxford and Bolton, but only one more than Pompey. But they're still in that conversation. They're still in that conversation. You look at their November; they're unbeaten in November. And the games they've had as well, they haven't been nice. Wycombe away is not nice. They won that game 1-0, kept a clean sheet. And it's the clean sheets that should be spoken about. 1-0 away against Wycombe, 1-0 at home against Lincoln, 2-2 with Peterborough, and they went 2-0 up in that game. They'd be disappointed not to win that. And then, again, I'm looking at December. They have played a game in December. They drew 1-1 with Port Vale. That's the FA Cup, of course, wasn't it? So you look at their league form, 2-2, 3-0 against Fleetwood. These are some fantastic results, full of solidity, first and foremost, but they can score goals. I mean, they beat Fleetwood fair and square. Nappers won't like saying it, but I watched his vlog on that, and he said, Stevenage, they turned up and did a job on Fleetwood. And again, they're not in great form, but to go anywhere and win 3-0 away from home, you've got to be, in a great vein of form. So Stevenage, I've been extremely impressed by them. Long may it continue. We know quite a few Stevenage fans, and we know how, going into a new season, it can be always a challenge, but to be fair, they've taken that challenge on head on, and so far they're succeeding in great fashion. So long may it continue. As long as you don't start moving into third or second, stay where you are, Stevenage, but you did extremely well. Let's put it that way. Of course, as well, we've got to speak about Bolton, and we nearly forgot them, not because they haven't been good, but because they've carried on being good. So we almost need the segment of they're impressing us, but they've been impressing us for a long period of time. And their sides that we've spoken about, Derby, Peterborough and Stevenage, they have maybe had some sticky periods, but now they've come through it. With Derby, with Bolton, they've continued to be just as impressive. And you look at the breakdown of their games during November, it's pretty impressive, isn't it? I mean, they've had some very, very difficult games and they've come through them fantastically. I know it was in the FA Cup, but they smashed Solihull Moors 4-0, went to Shrewsbury 1-2-0 comfortably, a clean sheet in both of those. Another clean sheet when they beat Blackpool 1-0, another clean sheet in the EFL Trophy, another clean sheet and 7 goals when they beat Exeter, and another clean sheet when they got a point away at Oxford United. Clean sheets in every single one of those games. They've only drawn and dropped points in one of those games. They haven't lost a single game over that period of time. Tom, they have been so impressive. And with Bolton, without sounding like a broken record, and we speak about it in the roundups, we probably spoke about it in the last one, we were always a little bit wary of the fact that this Bolton team, when they hit a run, they hit a good moment, it's hard to see them being stopped. They've found momentum and they now are really hitting a groove. And they've got a big game coming up. You'll be fully aware of that game against Portsmouth, and they've just had a big game against Oxford, and they've come through that, and they got a good point, and they'd say probably in the second half they deserve to get more from it, but we probably edged them in the first half, and a draw is probably a fair result. But they've got Portsmouth again away from home. They've got Oxford and Pompey away back to back in League One. It's not a nice set of fixtures, but it can be, and I know we laugh and joke and I don't like saying it, but it can be season defining. It's going to be a huge game of football. We might even get a tactical preview on it. And you know what? We'll probably set an early title decider in the title. It isn't. But we will say it is.
Because, no, I think it might be. I think you could consider it one.
It is. And it gets those little fingers clicking on it, doesn't it? So it's important.
Maybe wouldn't say early title decider, maybe early 6-pointer, I would say. It's a pre-Christmas 6-pointer, is it? I know that doesn't make people click as much. That doesn't make those fingers go any quicker, does it? So
CPM's high in December, lads. So...
Is it? There we go.
Got to get those. Uni's expensive. So when you think, do I click on this one? Am I interested, or it hasn't got my team in the title? I can click on the video. Because those meal deals, they're not getting any cheaper, are they? So
that's so true, by the way.
I know. I mean, if you want to know our go-to meal deals, sign up for T-Lot. We discussed that.
That's on there. He was on his way to Sainsbury's on the phone earlier on. Was it Sainsbury's or was it the Co-op?
Sainsbury's, local Sainsbury's.
Lovely.
So yeah,
sorry, League One.
So but if you do want to know our meal deals, that's the place to go. But how we went from meal deals to Bolton, I'll never know. Essentially, it's very, very important to say that Bolton are in a very, very good place right now and look very difficult to stop. And Tom, I suppose you want to speak a couple of minutes on the game coming up. It's a big one.
Yeah, I do believe there's a tactical preview coming out from your good self on it, which I'm very much looking forward to watching. And we were discussing it a little bit. I was giving you a couple of nitty gritty details that might be dropped in there about maybe the Paddy Lane element of the game that we could see next week. But yeah, 4 words to describe Bolton at the minute, Jack. 4 words and 4 words only. Terrified about next Monday.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
going to be
I
tough.
think it's well. You told me yourself that the Sheehan was one of the best players you've ever seen in League One.
Yeah, and I watched him. I watched him that game, and I watched Robertson. Very, very similar players, and I think it's going to be a really interesting battle. And without spoiling it too much, they could find themselves tactically in a very similar place. That could be a really interesting 1v1. Tom, like I say, we have to move on to the slightly negative turn on things. We're talking about three successful clubs during the month of November, but there are sides that have underwhelmed us. Do you want to start? There's a few in there, but Tom, you've gone into detail on one I can see here.
Yeah, I've left you probably the worst one,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you'll be able to maybe shed a bit more light on. I know you're quite not close to that situation, but I'm sure you've heard plenty about it over the last couple of weeks. And I actually got the ticket news came out for that particular away day, and it's probably the one that I'm looking forward to the most this year. Not because it's quite close to us, but looks like we're going to have hopefully a good day. But it'd be very probably to turn up there and absolutely capitulate. Anyway, more to come on that in just a moment. I felt Burton were poor when we played them on last Tuesday. The first 15 minutes of that second half, I feel like they came out with bit of fight. Other than that, it was kind of us playing all the football, and admittedly, we were pretty comfortable that night, as Wardy's already mentioned. I think it had quite a lot to do with Burton not being very good. And that night left them just 4 points clear of the relegation zone in League One after what was a pretty pleasing start to the season. I remember we were on these reflections, it might even have been as recent as last month, where we're saying that Burton have had a relatively pleasing start. You have to go back to the end of October for Burton's last league win. I think probably in the October reflection, we were much more positive about Burton than we are being now, or that I am being now. They failed to score in 4 successive league games now, with Oxford, Charlton and Blackpool all to come before Bolton away on New Year's Day. It's not going to get any easier for Burton, and I think things are going to have to start turning around from somewhere. It looked like a side that lacked that panache and that desire and that character that you need in League One to be let's not be disrespectful here, but to be one of the smaller sides in the division and have the big boys coming up as they do on their schedule and have already played Pompey recently. It's needs to be better from Burton, I think. And I say that with the greatest will in the world. And I say that with all the utmost respect, but they are not quite good enough at this moment in time. They need to be scoring goals. We look at what Cheltenham did to themselves, and they've already given themselves a mountain to climb, which, to be fair to them, they're sort of mounting and maybe even sort of a quarter of the way up now in terms of getting back there. But they gave themselves it all to do after not scoring goals for such a long time. And you have to score goals in League One. I sound like Michael Owen, but you have to. And to go 4 successive league games without doing so is a real worry. I don't know how many games extra have been without scoring a goal or extra have been without a win, Wardy, but it's not been great from them either.
No, it's been pretty dire, to be honest. And we spoke about it on Teal Up, I think, about it might have been in the extra, so I don't know if it was public, but we spoke about Gary Caldwell. Of course, he's been there for quite a long period of time now. I think, well, I say quite a long period of time. It's about a year, but of Wrexham, that's quite a short amount of time because they don't sack managers, and ultimately they try and keep managers in post for a long time. This one looks quite tedious. It looks as though they're going to stick by him. They did release a statement about sticking by him and financially backing him over January. It looks as though they're quite transparent at the football club. It doesn't happen often, football clubs being that transparent and saying, look, we're going to keep hold of this manager. He might not be getting the results right now. The team might not be getting results, but they have been affected by injuries. They have been affected by plenty of injuries. That squad is decimated. We're going to stick by him. We believe that we're going to stick by him and be able to climb our way out of trouble, because right now it's a one-way ticket to League Two. They're not in the relegation zone just yet, but they're on the cusp, aren't they? They're one place out. If it wasn't for Fleetwood hitting a bad run of form, Carlisle, Reading and Cheltenham, mixed results for them, but ultimately you still feel as though there's a long way to go. If it wasn't for Fleetwood being so bad after looked like a positive one last month, they would be in that bottom 4. Any run that Exeter or a football club goes on like Exeter have done, it would see them fall into that bottom 4. I could have been extremely good at preparing and told you exactly how long it was since their last league win. I think, and this is scary, by just scanning through, and I think I am correct in saying the last league win was, and I can't quite believe it, it was against Cheltenham on the 16th of September.
Yeah.
That's terrible. And again, like I say, I could have been, I didn't quite realize how bad that was until I was sort of scanning through the months. That's absolutely abysmal. I mean, I think to put it in context, and it's quite specific context, a flatmate is an Exeter fan. I don't think we'd moved into the flat. I don't think I don't think they've actually won a league game since we moved into the flat in September. I believe, I think that is right, because we played them. It was the weekend after we had Oxford. They had Oxford and we had Exeter and we beat them.
You know exactly what you're going to do as soon as we finish recording is you're going to be out that door and go and have a word with Harris and say, mate, do you realise? He probably does realise, but I'm surprised you haven't given him a bit of stick for that, because that was my dad's birthday. That was Derby away weekend. That's 16th of September.
It might have been overshadowed by the fact they have beaten Luton in the EFL Cup. They've had a bit of a cup run, but when it comes to the league, I mean, it's been terrible. And like I said, they've been decimated with injuries. They played Charlton, they've played Barnsley, they've played Derby, they played Oxford, they've played Wigan, they played Bolton. They got absolutely battered by Bolton 7-0.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned that yet.
You can be as transparent as you want, but when you lose 7-0 to any opposition, Bolton are on fire right now. When you lose 7-0 to any opposition, that surely throws a spanner into the works. So yeah, a huge concern for Exeter. I'm not quite sure where they go from here. Ultimately, you either stick with him, like you say, or you back him heavily in January. That's going to be the
stick
aim.
With him. Can you really?
It's hard. The problem is now, Tom, they've released that statement, so they've got to do a U-turn, or they've got to stick by him. But by sticking by him, it could send them. Also, a really good stat, I believe. Can I say it? I don't know if I might get sued. I'm not sued, but I'm not going to get into trouble. But we believe Gary Cole was in a bit of trouble for his antics on the road. In terms of, I believe he's got more points on his license. He's got more points on his license than they have in League One this season. Which we shouldn't laugh, but I was careful. I'm really careful what I say. I don't want to get into trouble, but I think it is public knowledge he hasn't quite been the most careful driver in recent weeks, or however long it was. I think I'm going to be safe on that, but it's a funny stat, and it's not. And I'm sorry, but it's terrible, isn't it? Also, Wickham haven't been great. To sort of summarise on that, Wickham have had a pretty tough month of November. And we've sort of been quite positive about Wickham since the summer, because they've sort of gone through that stylistic change of Bloomfield after Ainsworth left in the middle of last season. And to be fair, it looked like it was really starting to click. And I got a lot of stick for putting Wickham sort of in that bottom mid-table half of the table. But actually, so far, the prediction might be coming in. They lost to Stevenage at home. They lost to Reading. They gave Reading their first win, I believe, which is not good. And they got beaten by Barnsley.
That's not acceptable, is it?
No. Really.
I know it was always going to come at some point, but Reading had gone over a year without
at home as well. They were at home in that game.
Well, yeah. So no, not for me. That's dreadful as well.
And of course, they got knocked out in the FA Cup. I know it's League One. I know it's December, but they got beaten by Morecambe at home.
Another squad decimated by injuries, though. I suppose maybe Exeter and Wickham, you could say there's a little asterisk with the injuries, but Pompey have had their injury problems. Oxford are having injury problems at the moment. Like, it's not completely like you always feel as a football fan that injuries and crikey, look who's just dropped, or Colby's not available, or Regan's out for the season. You feel like it's kind of all yourself, don't you? But actually, when you look across the spectrum in League One, and this is kind of a great eye opener for me, really, and I suppose for you, where actually everyone kind of goes through it, don't they? So it's about the response to that. And if you can't respond, then you end up in the most underwhelmed side. Yes.
Teams have got better depth than others, and we know that Pompey are going to be and we believe Oxford had a pretty healthy money pot in the summer, so we could be a bit more effective with the budget that we had. And of course, we're not, Exeter aren't quite in that same boat, so they haven't got to, they're not able. It feels harsh, but it's how you deal with it. And right now, those two clubs are dealing with it quite badly. And you can have a lot of injuries, but to not win a game since the middle of September, it's pretty bad, isn't it? Tom, who surprised us? I'll say it again. The surprise package. I was going to not say it to stop you giggling, but that's fine. Surprise package of the month. Like I said, we could have put a few teams in there, but we're at the point of the season now where it could be deemed disrespectful because teams are flying. But Northampton, they've had a good month, Tom, and you've sort of written down some interesting points on them. It's been a good month for Northampton, even though you watched them in their last game and it wasn't so pretty.
No, and part of the reason why I was so pleased with the way that we actually went about our business at Sixfield of the weekend was due to the recent form of Northampton, who I think are an ideal shout for our surprise package this time round, which I always chuckle at, and I shouldn't because it's very immature of me. But yeah, I mean, you just that Blackpool game, I think, and I believe I said it on T-Lop, I think that will go down as probably one of their biggest victories of the season, particularly one of their biggest away from home, I'm sure, that they will get this season, because that is a ridiculous innings from them. And you know, 3 straight wins in League One. Before we play them on Saturday. That's absolutely fantastic. And when you look at the actual, and what I always like to do with these things, Wardy, is that there's a cheeky little feature on football where you go for the last 5 matches in League One. Northampton's form would put them 6th in League One if we'd only played 5 games. So, you know, a 9-point return from a possible 15 is really, really good going. And that includes losses either side of that 3-game unbeaten, 3-game winning streak, in the middle. So, yeah, really, really impressive Northampton. Obviously, before Saturday, I'll be honest with you, not given on what I saw on Saturday, I would assume they had a really, really bad day at the office, because I saw absolutely nothing of a side that looked anywhere near the kind that would beat Blackpool. Albeit, yes, Cambridge on a little bit of a downer, and we're going to get into the Mark Bonner chat in a minute. But yeah, it was a weird one with Northampton. I was expecting a lot more from them. Didn't see much of them. I can see why Sam Hoskins has done as well as he's done. He troubled Will Norris on a couple of occasions, but there were relatively tame efforts in the end. A couple of sort of headers that were slightly wayward, that on another day, maybe, you know, the right side of the crossbar, and it's a different story. But yeah, it was bizarre watching Northampton, given that wasn't potentially the build-up, but given the vein of form they were in, how well they've been doing, and how you boys on T-Lot were telling me, oh yeah, it's narrow games, and it's, you know, and it was narrow games, and they're only losing games by goals. But when you go away to their place and turn them over 3-0, I wonder whether that might be a similar sort of situation with us, a bit of a wake-up call perhaps from Northampton, getting slightly complacent. Gary Neville talked about Man City getting complacent at the weekend. Complacency's all over football. Perhaps Northampton getting a little bit comfortable with how easy life was going, in inverted commas, in League One for the last couple of weeks. Maybe there's a bit of a chance to reset from their point of view and start to go again and tackle December in the best way possible.
Next up, it's Player of the Month. I say Player of the Month. We should change that title to Players of the Month. There's multiple players, not just one. There's lots of names in the hat. But Tom, you can. Well, you start. You start again. You can go again. I was going to say I could go, but you know, you're the guest. I mean, I say you're the guest. You're here every single week. We have, you know, you've had your contract extended for another season, and we never even spoke about renewing it.
I was delighted.
But Tom, there's a few names in the hat. You've written 2 down. You've written 1 closer to your heart, essentially.
Oh, he's very, very close to my heart, mate. He has my heart, that man. He literally has it. Yeah, not this man, the next one. But from Mason Clark, 4 goals in the league in November. Part of the reason why Peterborough, what is wrong with me tonight? Peterborough have been so free scoring, and as free scoring as they have been, they've been excellent. But Alex Robertson, City's boy, is Pompey's man. And what a man he is at the age that he is as well. We spoke about that at the very top of the show. I know you're going to give him a special mention in your tactical preview. I know he will probably get 1 or 2 mentions in the big Pompey video that's coming out as well. Plenty of content on the Jack Ward Football Podcast. Like and subscribe. Make sure you don't miss a moment of it, because I certainly won't be missing any moments of it to come in the next week or so. He's going on a big drive in December, people. He's going on a big drive. I don't know if the Eisners are regular viewers of our monthly reflections, Jack. I'd like to think they are, but I plead to them directly, if they are joining us wherever they may be watching from, when they do come over next from US of A, bring the checkbook from Los Angeles, tear off a piece, give it a Robbo, let him write whichever numbers he wants on there, get him signed up, because obviously my head's telling me that we'll probably never see him again after the season. He'll do a kind of Gavin Bazunu, where that man literally made us look like a half-decent League One team when we were pretty much mid-table fodder for that season. And he was the reason why we stayed in so many games. Robertson is a Premier League player playing in a League One side. He genuinely is. And I spoke about the kind of company that I hold him in at the start of this show. It is getting to the point where you do just, the words begin to fail you about the talent, the cuteness, the practicality, the technicalities of his game. He's getting stronger and stronger as well, Wardy. Like when he came in, probably one of the only sticks you had to beat him was that perhaps lack of that physicality. I even feel like he's, from a sort of a conditioning sense, he's beefed himself up. He feels like he's filled out his shirt a bit more. He just, everything about him's just continually improving. He's a consummate professional, and he's slightly older than myself and yourself, as we mentioned. I don't know
First
anymore.
pro loan as well, right?
He went to Ross County, didn't he, for a little bit?
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
So not quite. But first
he
pro,
scored his first professional goal on Tuesday, if
right.
That's where you're going.
And it's first pro in England, of course, as well. So, you know, again, we're talking about, no disrespect to the other leagues, but when you talk about the English football pyramid, physicality, like you mentioned, there is really, really important. It's the first time in the Football League, which is a different breed. At times, physically, League One can be harder than in the Premier League. Of course, technically it isn't. We know that. It's the reason why teams are here and up there. But when you look at the physicality and what it demands of you, you know, you've got to beef yourself up and you've got to be ready. And when you sort of make your first step in the Football League, for a lot of players, that can be make or break. And there's been some players that have come down to EFL and not look very good, and you sort of see him playing in the Premier League now because that's just how the transition goes. But the same, Robertson has stepped up. He's massively stepped up, and we'll go into detail on him. I've got another Portsmouth video coming out really, really soon, hopefully, and that we go into detail about Robertson and exactly sort of how he has just revolutionise that midfield. You know, and there's a lot of midfielders in this Pompey team, a lot of good Pompey players, but Robertson stepped up and he's been fantastic. And I look at these clips. I think it was Hancock Analysis that retweeted the clip and the video of just him against Northampton. The boy has got that football glued to his boot. He is exceptional at retaining possession. It is a sight to behold, and to have him in League One, you know, I'd love him to be at Oxford, love him to be not at a football club that are flying like you are, but ultimately it's nice to see and refreshing to see footballers at that quality come to this league. And they could go to, you know, that he could be sat on the bench every week for Manchester City and not get a sniff, but instead he's come down to play football and he's showing how good of a footballer he is. And again, you know, we should also remember Mason Clark's been fantastic, and we're going to speak about someone else. Josh Sheehan's been great at Bolton too. Charles has been great at Bolton. We're speaking about football, and there hasn't sort of been one huge standout. It's been a lot of players that have turned up this month and have delivered. And to be fair, you know, Bolton, it's hard to sort of look past those sort of players when they are sort of in the position they're in. They're high flying right now. I watch Ian play, again, very similar, that he does not let the ball leave his foot, and so good at carrying the ball. He's not blessed with pace. And Robertson, I wouldn't say he's a rapid player, but he doesn't need to be. He's so good at dribbling. He doesn't need to be quick. It's one of those attributes of a player where you just wish you had it yourself. You don't have to be very quick. You know, you don't have to be rapid, because you're so good at keeping hold of the football. You can get around it. You know,
you're not rapid, are you, Wardy?
Well, I say that. That's probably one of my very few strengths. But the issue I've got is, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm great on the ball at all. So I'm the other way around. I wish I had his technical ability. I prefer his technical ability than his pace. I feel like that could be more helpful. But I don't think I'm going to be worrying about stepping foot in a Pompey midfield. So maybe I haven't got too much to worry about. Let's chat on the managers. We have got a few more segments, but not many. I think manager chat is the final one, and then we'll say our goodbyes. Manager chat. It used to be manager of the month, but we've sort of ended up speaking about lots of different things. Steve Evans, of course, is in the positive in our good books, if you like. And I wouldn't want to be in Steve Evans' bad books. I'm glad about that. And Mark Bonner as well. Not so good, and I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted to say that Mark Bonner, for the first time doing these reflections, is out of a job. He was sacked. They stuck by him, didn't they, last season? They stuck by him. They showed a great level of loyalty and kept him in post. He's a Cambridge fan, and he guided them in the end to the skin of their teeth, safety. But it was all too much for them. They've sacked Mark Bonner. He's left the football club. And when you look at the start they've had, they beat us on the opening day. But since then, it's been difficult. And Mark Bonner has left the football club. Without focusing on that too much, Steve Evans has been great. Ian Evatt has to be put in the hat. John Mousinho, they're still top of the table. These are some top managers, but Steve Evans, and I'd probably say Darren Ferguson. And again, we've given Paul Warne a lot of stick on this show, but he's been great in this last month. Sorry, Tom.
And just another one on Bonner. We were talking about Gary Caldwell, weren't we, earlier on in the show? And you spoke about that statement they released. It's not that long ago that Bonner had his contract extended as the Cambridge United boss, is it? So I think there is a world in which we spoke about Exeter not sacking managers, but there is a world in which that if things don't improve and if you do end up backing a manager, you can quite quickly backtrack. If you're not getting the results, you have to change, don't you? And that's the bottom line. And I think that was the kind of the push over the edge from a Cambridge United point of view. But he'll be a legend there. He'll go down in the history books, and it's been well documented in the last week or so since he's left the club that, yes, it's just shy of 4 years, but it's sort of a 20-year association in terms of his professional career with Cambridge United. And he's had a boyhood dream of managing the football club, and that's a boyhood dream fulfilled. So I'm sure Cambridge United wish Mark Bonner all the very best. I'm sure Jack Ward wishes Mark Bonner all the very best as well, because he's got no one else to talk about now. So he'll be beside himself. He's go on.
I mean, I was going to say, all jokes aside, Mark Bonner was tipped with some huge jobs. I believe he turned down the Rotherham job around this sort of time last season. He wanted to stay at Cambridge. He's a Cambridge fan. Things were going so well from in their first season back in League One, and to think, how quickly, without bringing it back to Liam Manning, it's the same thing. When his stock was high, he didn't take the job, and now his stock was high again. He's taken the job. With Mark Bonner, it's similar, isn't it? He didn't take that job, and he might look back now and look at it a different way. He might not. He might be someone that lives with no regrets. But I'm sure part of him deep down might be thinking, what if I did take that job? I mean, Rotherham have struggled anyway, so I'm not entirely sure how that would have gone. But you can never know. That's the beauty of football in some ways. Not so beautiful for Mark Bonner, of course, at the moment. But yeah, some really good managerial, I guess, moments and some good experiences for them in November. And it's been a really, really good month, Tom. And I've really enjoyed this one. It's been super relaxed, but I think we say it all the time, that blowing our own trumpet, it's probably been one of the best ones we've done. And hopefully at home you feel the same. Lots of content coming your way over the course of December, coming at you thick and fast. November, again, we had bits and pieces, obviously the Oxford managerial circus, but it's been quite a stop-starty month, hasn't it, when it comes to fixtures, FA Cup and international break. But December, things are going to come at you thick and fast, both on the pitch and hopefully on the podcast. And of course, the same with Tom as well. Go and check him out, go and subscribe. I'm sure you've already done all of that. Tom, thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's been great fun. And we'll speak in about 5 minutes off camera, but again, we'll speak on camera in these type of videos in the new year, which is very scary.
Yes, we are busy boys now, aren't we? Busy boys, content coming at you fast. Thank you for being with us as well. Much appreciated. Drop a subscribe on Jack's channel. He really does deserve it, and he is going to be delivering for you. I'm sure I'm not bigging him up too much because I know how much he's got planned over the next couple of weeks. So that is definitely something to look forward to. Yes. See you next year.